Week 3 is in the books, and I am excited to talk college football with all of you. Appreciate you stopping by here at the Voice of College Football. As announced before the season started, we are dedicated to a Sunday morning call-in show, 11 a.m. Eastern time. So here we are to talk college football with you, the big call-in show to wrap up the weekend. Of course, we go live after all the ball games on Saturday night, as we did until about 2:30 a.m. Eastern time. So back at it with all of you to talk week 3. All right, let's get to the scores. Let's get to the commentary. Let me talk about my impressions for week 3. We will not necessarily dive into week 4. So if you've got any comments or questions about week 4, that's fine. You can leave those comments and questions. I will take your comments and questions there in the chat. The super chat lights up rather well, so please contribute to the Voice of College Football. There you see Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App are available to you as well. That's actually the most effective way to contribute here at the Voice of College Football. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. You get those links in the description section of the video. And actually, the most effective way for you is to use the Amazon link that we provide, because it doesn't cost you a penny. And it's the same shopping experience, doesn't cost you a penny. And I got to be blunt. I would think that everybody that enjoys what we do here at the Voice of College Football, I don't know if that's 10 people or if that's 25 people or that's 3,000 people. I don't know. I know that we have 45,000 subscribers, and I know that we've got about 110,000 subscribers on the network. And I know that many of you repeat your subscriptions to various team channels, and we thank you for doing so. So I'm guessing we've got 75 or 80,000 subscribers here at the Voice of College Football. And if 1% of you use the Amazon link, then we would not have any issues with continuing to be here every day. Right now, we do. So the Amazon link is completely transparent to you. It's the easiest way and the most effective way for you to contribute, and it doesn't cost you a penny. All right, I have finished with the most important statement of the day. We will now get on to the college football portion of it. All right, so let's go through the scores. And I'm not going to go through every score in the country, but we start with all the scores in the FBS. Thursday, Friday, let's get through that. Of course, this Kansas State-Arizona game is not a conference game, so keep that in mind, that Kansas State and Arizona are still 0-0 in the Big 12, even though they are Big 12 teams. That's happened a few times, both in the Big 12 and the ACC. All right, Georgia escapes. What does that tell us about Georgia? They're not infallible. They played a team in Kentucky that lost by 25 points a week before to South Carolina. So college football, thank goodness, continues to be somewhat unpredictable. I love when people say college football is completely unpredictable. Well, no, it's not completely unpredictable. Otherwise, we wouldn't predict the games 80% correctly. It's somewhat unpredictable. So Kentucky put up a good fight. If I had no idea who these two teams were, if they had different jerseys on, I would have had no idea who was Georgia and who was Kentucky, except the Georgia quarterback Carson Beck was significantly better than Brock Vandagriff. And so that just justifies Kirby Smart's decision to make Carson Beck the quarterback of Georgia and to let Brock Vandagriff go to other pastures. Because that was probably the difference in the game, because Kentucky looked better along the defensive front, really outplayed the Georgia offensive line. The Georgia playmakers did not get out there and make big plays, except when given opportunities, because the quarterback put the ball on the money. And Carson Beck was not sharp in this game. He did not have a stellar game. However, he hit downfield throws, and Brock Vandagriff did not. So Kentucky loses in disappointing fashion at home because Georgia had to score in the fourth quarter. And guess what Georgia did? They went down the field and they scored a touchdown when they had to. And that's what championship teams do. All right, before we get to our next topic, we'll bring in Dominic here, our first caller. Dominic, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing just fine. What's up?
I am, as you can probably tell by my voice, I am so disappointed in last night's performance by Anthony Calandria and that UVA offense.
Yeah, they only put up 13 points, I see.
Yeah. Um, here are Anthony's stats from last night: 21 for 37, 247 yards, no touchdowns, and he threw 2 picks.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a great stat line. It's not a horrible stat line. There are certainly worse. He did put up about 250 yards of passing on only
Yeah.
21 completions. So that's a decent downfield ratio. Decent. Um, I don't know. I didn't see the game. I saw a couple plays here and there. I flipped to it, so I can't really evaluate his performance. Actually, I saw his first touchdown run, and that was pretty special right before halftime. That was a great play. But
Yeah.
when a quarterback throws 2 interceptions, I have to look at the film to see if it was his fault. I don't know.
Yeah. Like I talked to Ballard Sports Media a couple days ago, telling him that this would be our first loss of the season, and I was right. I knew it would be our first loss. Maryland's just consistent every year, and we took our first loss at home to a very good Maryland team.
Okay. Maryland, very good. Sure. I wouldn't quite use those words to describe Maryland, but they're decent.
Yeah. Especially their quarterback last night, Billy Edwards Jr., 28 for 43, 263 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks thrown. That guy is good.
Again, your definition of good and mine is a little slightly different. Is Billy Edwards a top flight? He's probably about the 40th best quarterback in the country.
Yeah, I could see him being like a top 40 quarterback. I could see that.
But it sounds like he played well last night.
Yeah, definitely did. All right, Mark. Well, that's about it. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
Dominic. Appreciate it. Good luck to the Cavaliers.
Thanks.
Yeah, Virginia, Maryland. Vegas had that line about 2 points, so pretty much a pick 'em game, and that's what it looked to be until late when Maryland pulled away. Again, I didn't see much of that game. I wanted to see it, but the various games get in the way of the other ones. That's the deal with college football. If we were covering the NFL, it would be much simpler to cover these games. Because you can keep an eye on what do we have in the NFL window. They play a game on Friday or Thursday. They play a game on Monday. They play a game on Sunday night. So there are 3 games every week that are exclusive TV windows. So you get to see those 3 games. Like if we were doing the NFL, then we would only have, let's see, 13 other games to deal with every week because you got 32 teams, you got 16 games, you got 3 played in exclusive TV windows. Therefore, you only have 13 other games that you've got to keep track of. And they are going to be played at 1 or 4 Eastern on Sunday. So you got about 8 or 9 games at 1, then you got 3 or 4 games at 4. And that's what you do. And it's easier to keep track of. College football, unfortunately, I don't get to see anything close to what I want to see. And I'm watching 3 screens from noon until we jump on for post game at 11 or 11:30 at night. So Maryland, Virginia, I wanted to see that game. I ended up seeing really the only thing that sticks in my brain is that Anthony Calandria touchdown run at the end of the first half. He took a huge gamble. I believe Virginia was, I don't remember what the score was. It was next to nothing, close to next to nothing. Neither offense did much in the first half, but they were in a situation where basically they had no timeouts. They had to throw the ball to the end zone. There were only, I believe, 9 seconds left in the first half. And Calandria foolishly took off for the end zone because he needed to throw the ball in the end zone or incomplete to secure the field goal. He foolishly took off for the end zone and made his way through a maze of Maryland defenders and scored the touchdown. So he hit the sideline, and I believe he heard, "Great play, but don't do that again." And then, but Maryland took off in the fourth quarter. They were down, I believe, 13-7. and they ended up coming back to win 27-13. So Maryland bounces back from a loss against Michigan State last week to win a non-conference game. Let's check in with our buddy Michael following Purdue's stellar effort on Saturday. Michael, how you doing?
Hey, Mark. Good morning, sir. And I apologize for last night. I fell asleep.
Oh, well, that's quite all right.
As I posted on Facebook yesterday, do you know if the FBI found the real Purdue team, or are they still missing in action right now?
Well, you may have found the real Purdue team. That's the unfortunate part of it.
Mark, that was not. They did not. No. I could have got 10 other players to play better than they did yesterday. That was not the Purdue team. That was just. And what's so ironic was Notre Dame fans didn't even think it was going to be that bad. They thought it was going to be a closer game.
Yeah, well, we don't listen to fans because they typically don't know what they're talking about.
Well,
the
true.
Vegas lines will tell you that the people generally don't bet the correct way.
Yeah,
that shows you that they don't know what they're talking about.
Boy, I wonder what Vegas is
We
doing.
love the fans out there, but most of you don't know what you're talking about.
Sure, but how surprised was you though?
Well, yeah, I didn't think it was going to be 66-7, but I did predict Notre Dame to cover the spread. I thought it was probably going to be more like, I don't know, 34-17, something like that.
Yeah. But no, hopefully Purdue will bounce back and get the ship righted Saturday night up in Corvallis.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I didn't see the game. I wanted to watch the game, but again, did not get to it. At the point that I would have been able to flip it on because I posted the videos for the noon games, it was already like 28-0 before I could blink. So I thought, yeah, this is going to be a waste watching this game. Maybe I'll go back and look at the extended highlights, which I did with a few other games last night.
Yeah, boy. I mean, like, I got to give credit to Kentucky, even though they lost last night. But that fourth down punt play by Stoops had me questioning, like, why? 1 and 4th and short.
Oh, that Kentucky did not go for it?
Yeah.
Exactly. Should have went for it. I even said that beforehand, and they never got the ball back with reasonable amount of time. Yeah, I did not agree with that either. You got to take your shot there. Yeah, did not agree with that in any such way.
Yeah, pretty much Riley Leonard beat Purdue by himself yesterday.
He did?
Well, I mean, you take the 3 touchdowns he scores, and take all the other touchdowns away.
And it's a mere 45-7.
No. You take all the other touchdowns away that Notre Dame scored. It was the final score. Well, 21-7 Notre Dame.
Well, that's typically, if you take away all the touchdowns, then that's typically the quarterback usually accounts for most of the touchdowns.
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I didn't watch the game, but I think that Notre Dame probably could have had any one of about 50 quarterbacks playing yesterday, and they would have been just fine.
Yeah, but I've never seen so much missed tackling in my life than I did yesterday.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I got to give them stuff like that, man, but I don't know. We'll see what happens and stuff like that. Both teams are going to be pretty salty after, because I think Oregon State got smacked, 49-14?
Yes.
All right, so we'll see what's happening. And like I said, if memory serves me right, didn't I say this was I had this as a loss still before the season started with Purdue and Notre Dame?
I have no idea. I don't know.
I did say that. And then last week when they lost I did have this as a loss because I remember saying Purdue is going to go 2-1 in the non-conference schedule. Because I had them, my season prediction was 6-6, but anyway.
Yeah, I'm leaning heavily in Oregon State's side here going forward this weekend.
But another thing I'm trying to figure out is how did the Vegas people get it so wrong, though? Is it because the game was Northern Illinois?
What did they get wrong?
The spread.
What did you want them to come out with, a 59-point spread?
No. I figured because usually when Notre Dame plays bad the next week and stuff, it like a 20 to 25 points, or I guess it just depends on who they play, I guess. But anyway.
Well, yeah, the point spread does depend on who you play.
Mm-hmm. I've seen times where it's been like a 20 to 25 point spread against Purdue, and then Purdue usually gives them. But I don't know. I digress. You know that more than I do. But anyway, so is the MAC starting to be a decent conference this year?
Well, that's a great point that you make there. Let's kind of explore that. What do we have here? Let's look at the standings real quick because we know that Toledo went down to Mississippi State and won handily, blew them out. Let's look at the MAC.
Oh, why
Love
you do
talking
that?
some MAC football here.
Why you do that, Mark? My thoughts go with Tyler Van Dyke. Is that a season-ending injury?
I've not seen any updates on that. I don't know. I've not heard any reports on that. I hope not.
Yeah, stuff like that. So no, but Toledo, that was just an absolute take it to the woodshed.
Yeah,
that they
Toledo
did.
whipped up on Mississippi State, and they were a 10 or 11 point dog on the road. And that doesn't it surprises me how badly they beat Mississippi State. And Mississippi State might be the worst team in the SEC or close to it, but still, a really good win for the MAC there. We know what Northern Illinois accomplished, which looks even better that Notre Dame wins and should have a 10-2, 11-1 kind of season. Buffalo, I'm trying to think who they've played. They lost to Missouri 38-0.
Yeah.
Eastern Michigan got trampled by Washington. We're looking at the standings right here. Ohio lost to Syracuse by 17. Ball State
got smacked yesterday.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Ball State got, what was it, 55-0 Miami?
I believe it ended 62-0.
Okay.
So my support of the MAC and its great accomplishments this year is starting to wane because after Toledo and Northern Illinois, let's see, Bowling Green, what have they done? Who did they? Oh, they almost beat Penn State.
Yeah.
So they had a good effort. They had a really good effort. Absolutely.
So it's pretty much a two-team race right now between two. But so they're not in divisions no more either, are they?
Why is there a two-team race?
Between because I was asking, because I see it right now, it's like Northern Illinois and
they're
Toledo.
all 0-0.
Well, I mean, as far as like, even though they haven't started, but are they still in divisions or they get rid of divisions also?
No divisions.
Okay. I was wondering because I know they used to have divisions and stuff.
Yes.
So.
They even had divisions last year, but they're showing us no divisions here.
All right. So what game surprised you most yesterday? Texas A&M smacking Florida in the swamp or LSU in South Carolina?
Can't say that either one of them. I guess that Texas A&M won by the margin that they did. Yes. I thought that was going to be a really good game. The South Carolina LSU game, I thought that game and the West Virginia Pitt game to me I was glad that I watched both of those games start to finish. Loved both of those games. Enjoyed both of them. Great games. South Carolina, unfortunately, should have won that game. I thought, played better, were the better team, but they made the most blunders and stupid penalties. And whether they were justified or not, some of them, South Carolina should have won that game, should be kicking themselves, but LSU escaped.
All right, so who did win the backyard brawl?
Who won?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a great game, Michael. You should take yourself about 10 or 12 minutes and go look at the extended highlights. So it went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then West Virginia scored a touchdown and a field goal, an outstanding one-handed touchdown catch to make it 34-24. So West Virginia's up 34-24 with about 3 minutes left. And Pitt comes racing down the field, and they kick a field goal to make it 38. I don't want to lose track of scores here. They scored a touchdown. Oh, my goodness. I don't remember what happened. Anyway, they scored 2 touchdowns in the last like 3 or 4 minutes. It was a great game. And Pitt scored twice in the last 3 or 4 minutes to win the game.
Yeah. And stuff like that. I got to give props. Yeah, I'm a Purdue fan, but I got to give props. IU is playing some good football right now.
Oh,
stuff like that.
Yes, they are.
But you wonder when the water's going to find its level, though.
Well, I think both is going to happen. I think they're going to run into better opponents, of course. They're going to get smacked around here soon, but they're a much improved football team. Indiana of the last, 2021, 22, and 23, those 3 seasons would not have done what they did in the first 2 non-conference games or in this game against UCLA.
I agree and stuff like that. My thing is, and I mean, there's people already considering this is like the reincarnation of Daryl Hill. I don't think it is, but a part of me thinks like I hope it's not the reincarnation of Daryl Hazel with Ryan Walters. But we'll see what happens. I still think they just. But man, I've never been so. I was like, the way it's going yesterday, but like, my goodness, I couldn't even. It was still bad. Now I'm taking medicine and stuff like that for some health conditions. I literally wanted to drink yesterday and I couldn't do it. That's how bad it was yesterday.
That is too bad. I'm sorry to see that because I thought that was going to be at least a decent game. Purdue would compete, but yeah, you got to kind of question the preparation for that game and the motivation, the incentive, all of that. And that goes back to the head coach. When your team, there is not that much difference between. Now, let me be clear here. I believe that Notre Dame is a significantly better team than Purdue, but
Absolutely.
they're not a 66-7 better team than Purdue.
I agree with you.
They're a 2 to 3 touchdown better team than Purdue. That should have been a more competitive game.
Yeah. Do you think Bama could have put more points up on Wisconsin yesterday, or did they pull the horses back?
Well, I think for the first half going into the second half, I think that Wisconsin gifted them points. I think that Wisconsin could have been more competitive on the scoreboard, but they continued to make mistakes. Well, I stopped watching at 35-10, so I don't know what Bama could have done the last quarter, possibly.
Yeah, and stuff like that. But no, I see Quinn Ewers had an abdominal injury last night.
Yes.
All right. Well, I hope everything goes well with him and stuff like that. But no, I am totally surprised that you're doing a Sunday morning stream, sir.
You are?
Yes.
Yeah, we just figured that some people like to go to bed on Saturday night, and this will give them an opportunity to call in and to discuss college football on Sunday morning.
Yeah, stuff like that. All right, I'm going to let you go because I'm sure you got other callers, but I got 3 words. Burn the tape. Burn the memory of yesterday. Move on. Make it a figment of the imagination stuff. So
that is great advice.
All right, Mark, take care. God bless. Have a good day. Oh,
thank you, Michael.
Your Cowboys win today?
My Cowboys?
Yes.
My Cowboys?
Didn't you say you was a Dallas Cowboys fan at one time?
Yeah, at one time. That was more than 30 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't care about the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, fair enough then.
I have no idea who even their quarterback is at this point. Is it still Dak Prescott?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
All right, Michael.
I look forward to top 25 that actually makes sense later today or tomorrow.
I do too. Thank you for that.
Take care. Thanks, Mark. Have a great day. God bless.
You too. God bless you. Bye. Yeah, as a big Dallas Cowboys fan growing up. And then they fired Tom Landry, and I was done with them. So in 1989, I threw dirt on the Dallas Cowboys. And I was an NFL fan. I would not consider myself an NFL fan now. Will I turn the games on this afternoon? Yeah, I'd like to. I tried to last week, and I had all sorts of issues with YouTube TV and with my streaming, and it turned into a big mess. And I didn't even think about the NFL until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon anyway. But man, I used to love the NFL more than just about anything. All right. Good morning to Shoot'em 556 and Abel Kane's brother. Interesting handle there. Ferris, who saw the train wreck coming. And we appreciate you all being here. So, Rocker Farm, let's get to your beloved Wazoo Cougars here, because that was a heck of a game right there that they played against Washington. Are we going to be able to find it here? Let's go, let's go, let's go. There we go. Washington State in Washington. Cougars moved to 5-0 with John Mateer at quarterback. I did not see any of this game either, unfortunately. I'll have to go back and watch the cut down version. We see John Mateer. I don't know much about John Mateer except the name. Wouldn't be able to pick him out of a lineup. Wayshawn Parker. I got to say, unfortunately, I know less about Washington State football right now than I probably ever have in my life, number one, and probably less than any other power team in the country. Chris Hudson. That name sounds familiar. Josh Meredith, Chris Hudson receiving. Then we've got, of course, we had Jake Dickert on a couple times here at the Voice of College Football. Hopefully you've seen those interviews. That would have been in maybe 2020, 2021, 21, I believe. But I picked Washington State to win this game just based on reviewing their game against Texas Tech in particular. I was impressed with that. Will Rogers looks like he still had a decent day for Washington. They're 23 of 31 for 314 and a touchdown. Jonah Coleman found some rushing yardage. So there were plays to be made there for Washington. They racked up 452 yards of total offense to Wazoo's 381. So there must have been some kind of turnover issue here somewhere. No interceptions. No fumbles. So Washington State was minus 40 or 45 yards. And actually, they threw a pick. So Washington had a +1 in turnovers. How did they lose this game? Well, for one thing, they settled for field goals, 4 for 4. While Washington State must have scored, 3 touchdowns. There you go. Red zone defense. Red zone play, offense, defense. That's what decided this game. You can see by the box score because Washington State got outgained. They committed a turnover and lost the turnover battle 1-0. They missed a field goal and they still won the game by 5 because Washington bogged down in the red zone. They went 4 for 4 on field goals and obviously only scored 1 touchdown, while Washington State scored 3 touchdowns. There is your ball game right there. So good effort by Washington State. And let's see what the Cougars have upcoming. San Jose State, they should be able to take care of the Spartans to go to 4-0. Boise State, they should win that game on the road, although that's going to be a good game. I'm looking forward to that one. 3-4-5. Fresno State 6. You know what? For a second there, I blanked on the whole Pac-12 situation and of course, their alignment with the Mountain West this season, because for a second I was waiting for these Mountain West games to run out and for the conference season to start. That's right. They've got a cush schedule. Could Washington State go undefeated? And what do you do with them if they do? Do you consider... This is an interesting dilemma here that I would love to see play out. Maybe I'll post a video on this. What if Washington State goes undefeated? They would not, I do not believe, technically qualify as a group of 5 team. I think they can only qualify as an at-large. And if they would have wins against Texas Tech, let's say Texas Tech goes 7-5, and they beat Washington. Let's say Washington goes 7-5. And they beat Boise State, who wins the Mountain West Conference. And they beat Fresno State, who's another decent team out of the Mountain West. And they beat San Diego State, who's probably not going to be that good. Utah State played Utah well yesterday. The other nice win would be Oregon State. And Oregon State's playing a pretty similar schedule to Washington State. So you got to think Oregon State's going to go 9-3. Do you put Washington State in the playoffs as an at-large at 12-0? Oh, I want that to happen. I want that to happen. What do we have here? Lisa, is she responding to somebody else, or is this? Let's see. So Lisa's talking about our last call. Our buddy Tim Prangley called in, and he's upset because I call the LSU USC game a basic stalemate. Just basically said I come away from that game not knowing who's better. USC won the game. So we give them full credit for winning the game as though they would have won the game 50-0. However, in terms of evaluating the teams, I don't know who's a better team right now, LSU or USC. I want to see them play more quality teams down the road. And sometime in November, I'm going to be able to tell you, well, USC is a better team than LSU. Or, you know what? LSU is actually a better team than USC. Or what's most likely to happen is, wow, they're really close, but I'll tell you that I think USC is better, but not by much. That's probably going to be the result. But based on that game, USC won the game. However, I don't know. I can give you a million examples, and all of you can probably do the same thing. A million examples of games that were won by one team, but you either walk away from the game thinking that the other team was still better, or that you didn't know who was better. That doesn't invalidate the final score. The final score was that USC won the game. So we credit them with the win. They should be ranked higher and all those things, given more credit. Absolutely. But in terms of evaluating the teams, I watched the Patriots and the Giants play a Super Bowl, and most NFL historians, scouts, coaches, people that know the game, I'm not talking about fans, would tell you that the Patriots are still the better team, but they lost the Super Bowl. So the Giants are the world champions, and they should be. So we could go through countless games like that. So Lisa, I apologize for cussing last night. It's not something I do on a regular basis, but at the same time, I apologize if you took offense to it. I'm not going to apologize for cussing. That's not what we do here on a regular basis. I'm not going to spew out cuss words, number one, because that's not what I want to present. But if one slips once in a while, I'm not going to apologize for that. Yeah, we had a difference of opinion, and there was no reason to continue the conversation because we weren't going anywhere. Not talking about moral victories. It has nothing to do with moral victories. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Very few people outside of Ohio care about that's not what I'm talking about. Aaron, call the show because you have obviously not understood anything that I've said. It has nothing to do with that. I'm not saying that if we rank the teams that we should rank LSU higher. First of all, I'm not even saying that LSU is better than USC. If anything, I would say that USC is better than LSU. I'm saying that they're very close. And I'm not talking about a better team argument. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we still evaluate the teams and we can still have an evaluation of the teams. Otherwise, why are we here? We might as well shut down the stream and not even have a channel. Shut down the channel because that's what we do. We discuss college football and making sense of the results. That's what we do. Georgia beat Kentucky last night 13-12. Okay, what does that mean? Does that mean Georgia's not as good as we thought they were? Or did they have an off night? Do we believe that Kentucky's better than we thought they were? What does that say about South Carolina? We're just exploring all those things. LSU and USC played a game that USC won. They should be given full credit for that. They should be ranked. I am ranking USC like number 2 or 3 in the country and ranking LSU about 13 or 14. So obviously, I am very much putting the results of that game into practice. Not talking about that. I'm talking about evaluating the teams because they're going to continue to play other games against other teams and evaluating the teams. I'm not talking about like rewriting history or saying, well, that team got ripped off or that team's really better, so we should rank them higher. No, I'm not talking about any of that. But let's understand these teams only play once. And if they played again, who knows what would happen? Although that doesn't matter because they only play once. Well, Chris was just being Chris has a habit of being completely irrational. I think that's pretty well documented. I don't need to explain. And I hardly ever would say that about anyone, even though there are tons of callers that call in, and I don't believe that they really have anything worthwhile to say. I don't think that they're irrational. But Chris was talking about Hawaii and UNLV joining the Big Ten. So my two issues with Chris last night, basic issues, I had about 143 issues with what he had to say, but two basic issues were, number one, I was wanting to focus on the 2024 season. So Chris likes to delve into history, which I love talking college football history. I can talk that every day, all day. But once the season starts, we're focused on the season. We've got the longest off season of any sport. We don't want to spend the season talking about history. We can do that in May. So I'm not talking about 2020, or I'm not talking about 1984. I'm not talking about some other year or history during the season. We're not doing that. We, especially on a Saturday, we're talking about the games going on right then and there. So that's number one. That was my first irritation, that I kept telling him we are talking about right now. The second one is, again, it had nothing to do with the games being played. He was trying to propose that the Big Ten should go get UNLV in Hawaii, so I'll make a great example of our guy, Adam, who calls all the time. Adam brings interesting, insightful, reasonable, thoughtful, smart proposals forward, and we discuss them. That doesn't mean I agree with them. That doesn't mean that he's right. That doesn't mean I'm right. It doesn't mean he's wrong or I'm wrong. Sometimes we both have really good opinions and we arrive at some kind of happy medium. Sometimes we completely disagree, but respect each other's side. But he brings very thoughtful debates to the table. For example, if you were going to debate greatest quarterbacks of all time, and you were going to say Tom Brady, and I was going to say Otto Graham or Johnny Unitas or Joe Montana. Okay, let's say that's the debate. Greatest quarterback of all time, and you say Tom Brady, and I say Joe Montana. We can have a reasonable debate. Okay? That is a reasonable, rational debate. Now, how it ensues from there, who knows? But if we were going to have a debate, who's the greatest quarterback of all time, and you said Tom Brady, and I said Charlie Fry, well, it's not worth debating. It's not a debate. It's moronic and stupid. It's irrational. It's not a debate. So the proposal of the Big Ten bringing in Hawaii and UNLV is not debatable. It's moronic. Now, if he would have said Iowa State or Kansas, or he would have talked about some other schools, I don't know who, Clemson, Florida State, then we would have had a discussion. All right. So yeah, we always welcome. So there's one thing, there's a difference between having a debate where I don't agree with your opinion, but it's valid. It's a strong opinion. You have reliable information and it's well thought out. I just don't agree with it, and you don't agree with me, and that's fine. It's another thing to have a debate that's completely ridiculous, that it's a waste of time. It's pointless. Like if we wanted to discuss who's the best team in college football right now, and you said Ohio State, and I said Georgia, or you said it could be Texas, could be Alabama, could be Oregon, and I said it's Georgia, and we would have a debate, and that would be reasonable. If you said, I believe that despite what happened yesterday, Purdue is the best team in college football, and let's debate it. Well, I'm not starting a debate, because you have to at least have a reasonable foundation of a debate. Purdue's not the best team in college football. We can't debate that. It's pointless. All right, let's get to the ball games here. We will remind everyone that we've got a college football show called The College Football Show. I'm still looking for the entry to the winner of the naming of this show, which was not taken or used, but still we would honor that person with gear. And they had the submission of something about the Audible. Yes, the college football Audible with Mark Rogers, or the voice of college football Audible, something like that. And they were the winner of our contest, and they are entitled to some free gear. So we want to know who that is. The College Football Show with me every Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We have added just in the last couple of weeks a Notre Dame show, an Alabama show, Ole Miss show, and Indiana show. So our new Alabama show is with Jackson Johnson, Mondays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We've had, I believe, 3 or 4 at this point. Our new Indiana show is Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Our new Notre Dame show is with Brian Driscoll of Irish Breakdown. That's Wednesdays at 8. And then we've got a new show on Thursdays with myself and Leanne Herring at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to do that right here on the main channel until we build up the show. That's an Ole Miss show live Thursdays at 2. All right. Next call coming in. Matthew, how you doing today?
I'm great, Mark. How are you doing?
I am doing just fine. What's up?
Not much. I really don't have that much to say because the Buckeyes were off this weekend. Shout out to Michael for a great call in and posting the link so I could call you.
Oh, thank you, Michael.
Yep. I'm actually the Wax Man. I've commented the last few times here. One topic, how bad did Georgia look last night?
Well, they look pretty bad for 2 basic reasons. Number one, their speed players, their skill players on offense weren't able to operate in space and do any damage. And number 2, probably more concerning to me, is that their offensive line got manhandled most of the time.
Yes, they did. I was really shocked that Kentucky did what they did because that's not a good Kentucky team.
Well, we don't know if they're good. We know that they've got a lot of NFL talent on that team. Like, that team is going to produce a high level of NFL talent, probably not anywhere close to Georgia or Alabama. But after that first tier, yeah, they've got a lot of talent on that team.
I don't keep up with Kentucky that much. I just, base it off the eye test. Also, I wanted to say Jeffrey is a great add to your content. That young man is super smart, and it's good to see, the youth getting involved and you giving them the opportunity to do that. So thank you, Mark.
We've enjoyed Jeffrey calling for a long, long time, and he's been a great support and always brings up great topics, and he's enthusiastic and bright. And I look forward to listening to him do the Indiana show. So thank you.
Absolutely. I'll let you get off here. I know you got other callers.
Thanks, Waxman. Thanks for calling.
Have a great day.
You too. Let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football, and we're going to talk, I believe, some Notre Dame. We got our buddy Will here. Will, what's going on today?
I'm happier than I was last week.
I guess 66 is better than 14 or whatever.
Yeah, I tried to call in last week when I was still it didn't quite hit me yet. We actually lost to Northern Illinois, but I was too miserable to call in the rest of the week once it hit and we actually lost. But I don't think Riley. I mean, I'm fine playing Riley Leonard, but I don't think he should be starting the whole game because his passing still until his passing improves. I'm not saying Steve's the answer either because Steve took a couple dumb sacks that you just gotta be able to get the ball away there at least. But
so
Riley's
passing, Riley Leonard's injured, correct? That he's hurt in some way.
Hurt in some way.
That's what I asked Brian Driscoll this week, and he said, "Well, nothing's been
he was a little hurt.
But that's the thought.
It was his non-throwing arm, though. So.
Okay. His labrum, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Jeremiah Love, this guy might be the best. I mean, I know it's early to say, but he seems like the most talented running back the Irish have had in a long time. Like, I feel like he's going to have a long career in the NFL. Whether or not he wins a national championship with Notre Dame, he's just a very impressive football player.
How many more years does he have to play?
He's a sophomore, so he will play next season as well, which is exciting.
Okay. I was going to say, all right. I was going to take issue with that if this was his last season. I was just wondering about your aspirations of winning a national championship. Okay, maybe next year.
Yeah. I mean, this may be diluted, but I'm still holding off hope that the Irish can win out. But this could be it. It's also just me not wanting to be miserable the whole
Well,
season.
sure they could win out.
Yeah. So
they're playing one.
I know
what we
I know
think is really, really good team. We think USC's proven something, but let's not go crazy until they do it 3 or 4 times. And Louisville, of course, hasn't played anyone yet, but I got all the respect in the world for Jeff Brom.
Mark, I am very bothered by Kentucky punting down the stretch against Georgia.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing, Mark Stu? Oh my gosh, I was so frustrated watching the end of that game.
He is coaching like it's 1975, which if it's wrong in 1975, it's wrong now. They just didn't know any better then that it's 4th and 8. Your percentage chance of converting is probably less than 50-50, but it's still better than when you're at they were basically at midfield, then punting, and then assuming you're going to get the ball back, which of course they didn't. They didn't in enough time to do anything with it.
It's what Bear Bryant did in the 1973 national championship against Notre Dame. Like, I don't know. What are you doing?
Well, that's what they used to do back then because they didn't know any better.
Yeah. But wasn't there like a roughing the punter on the punt and they declined it to give it to Notre Dame? Wouldn't it have been a first down for Bama?
Oh, you're talking about in the championship game.
I know back then too. Yeah, I don't know. But also.
I'll have to go back and watch that.
Yeah. I mean, I know no one in the chat cares.
The 73 national champ, or that was in the Orange Bowl, right?
That was Sugar. The next
Sugar
season
Bowl
was Orange, but it was in Tulane Stadium, not the Superdome.
Yeah.
Because it was before the Superdome. Also, South Carolina and LSU, like South Carolina did everything they could to throw away the game.
Yeah, they handed the game to your buddy Brian Kelly.
I mean, I'm not that angry about. I mean, I don't know. My Kelly hatred has died down. I'm maturing, but what are you doing blocking the quarterback after he threw an interception? And I don't know.
Yeah, and that same player was the one that threw on the horse collar that negated a pick 6 before. Did you see that?
It was the same guy. Well, I wasn't watching just that game. I was hopping around a bit.
I watched the entire game. So in the first quarter, there was a pick 6 for, I don't know if it was a pick 6. It was an interception in the red zone, in the opposite red zone that would have given them the ball like the 10-yard line. No, I think he took it all the way back for a touchdown. Yeah, it would have been a pick 6, but it was the horse collar. The guy had a great game too, Kyle Kennard. The rest of the game, he was a terror, but he cost them 2 touchdowns.
Oh my goodness. Did you see much of the backyard brawl, Mark?
Oh, I watched it start to finish. I recorded it. I went back and I zoomed through it and watched every play. I thought, oh, that was a great game. Those were my 2 favorite games of the day, the backyard brawl and the LSU South Carolina game.
Yeah, those were probably the best games of the week. But Mark, do you think that this is just a blip from Georgia? Or do you think that they might struggle in a few? I mean, they're going to struggle in some games because of the quality of competition they're playing in the SEC. But do you think they're still a top 5 team?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes. They're a top 5 team. They are now not arguably or substantially the best team or indisputably the best team. I thought that a week ago. Not that I thought that would play out for the rest of the year, but I thought, okay, based on what we have right now, I believe that Georgia has played the best against the best competition. They are the best team in the country. But now, that has brought them back. They have put on tape a lot of flaws. And so we'll see how they bounce back against Alabama. I would expect them to come out fighting, and maybe they overlooked Kentucky.
Is it at Brian Denny or Stanford?
Oh, it's in Tuscaloosa.
Oh,
Georgia has its 3 toughest games on the road: Ole Miss, Texas, and Bama.
oh, brother. Okay, that'll be fun.
Yeah, if they would have tripped up last night, then they would really be staring at a possible playoff miss.
Yeah, and lastly, I'm just happy for Jeffrey to get that win in the Rose Bowl. I mean, Indiana might be like I'm not going to say they're a playoff team, but they might be like an 8 or 9 win team. I don't know. I could be getting ahead of myself because of how bad UCLA is.
9?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably not. No, that was dumb of me to say that, but
well, no, we don't know. I don't want to discount any of it because the Indiana team of the last 3 years would not have won those games to the extent that they did. They might be 3-0 right now, but they would have beaten UCLA 20-17, and they would have won these other games by a few touchdowns, not completely just truck these teams. They got Charlotte this week. That gets them to 4. Then they've got just a series of games. Who knows who's going to win these games? Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington.
Well, they should beat Maryland,
Really?
Northwestern.
Really?
I mean,
I guess they
Maryland
should.
hasn't looked impressive this season.
I don't. Yep, but these, I understand that. But Will, you watch college football every year?
That's fair. You're right. Yeah.
You're really that confident that they're going to beat Maryland in 2 weeks?
I don't know.
I'm not.
They just look well coached, but yeah. Maybe not.
The Northwestern game, I'll give you that one. I think that's more reasonable to think that they should win that game.
I'm fascinated on how Nebraska will be this season too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of teams like that I'm now fascinated to see. Are they for real? They've shown us a glimpse. So how good is South Carolina? How good is Nebraska? Who else out there? We've yet to see Louisville play anyone. How good are they going to be? What is Tennessee going to be once they play like really good teams?
They got Oklahoma.
Oklahoma hasn't looked great, but they haven't played an SEC team. How good are they going to be?
How good is Penn State?
Yeah.
That'll be a fun game.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State are really good. And Oregon and Texas and Oregon probably is. And then after that, USC. I don't know. I am confident in saying USC is one of the 25 best teams in the country, but are they one of the 6 or 7 best? They might be.
We'll see.
Yeah, look at Washington going out there. Well, they lost this Washington State game. So I don't know if you heard my topic a few minutes ago because we had a Washington State fan in the chat, but we looked at Washington State's schedule now that they're 3-0 and they beat Washington. And what is the committee going to do with them if they go undefeated? And they're not going to take up a group of 5 spot because they're not in the group of 5.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that.
They're an at-large.
Geez, that's tough for them. I didn't know that. Wow.
They're in the Pac-12. They are technically in the Pac-12. So unless they amend some kind of rule between now and then, the way I understand it, they can make the playoff. They're eligible for the playoff, but only as an at-large.
Jeez.
So that's not taking away the group of 5 spot.
I mean, that's kind of their fault for not joining it. Well, now they're going to have a conference, so.
Yeah. I want to see Washington State go undefeated. That would be great.
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah.
And they will have wins against Washington, Boise State, Fresno State, Oregon State. Maybe somebody else is in there, Texas Tech.
I mean, I'm happy for those fans on Washington State, too. That would have been a fun game for them.
Yeah. Yeah, you have that that ire of, oh, they're too good for us. They're too good for our conference. They went off to the Big Ten, but we still won the game.
Mm-hmm. I was dumb to not pick that upset this week, but see if I can get the one right this one.
Yeah, that is one of the few games I got right.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mark. Well, fun chatting about this. Was a fun week of college football.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, there were no marquee matchups,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a fun week.
All right. Appreciate it, Mark.
Okay, Will. Thank you. And when we start talking about all these games and all these games that I wanted to see that I did not get a chance to see, because you guys have probably heard this about 84 times, but many of you are new or don't listen to me very often, that I watched 2 games at noon, 2 at 3:30, 2 primetime. I would watch more, but I have discovered that if I try to watch 3 games, I'm really watching 0 games because I can't keep track of all of them. And at the end of 3 hours, I'm like, well, I just had 3 games on in front of me and I can't tell you much about any of them. So I can only watch 2 games at the same time. And I actually keep the audio up on both of them because I can kind of listen to both announced teams at the same time. And so I watch the 2 noon Eastern time games, and then I cut videos on those 2 games. And so check out the instant analysis on those 2 games from yesterday. And then by the time I get to the 3:30 games, they're at about halftime. So I try to catch up with those games, which was kind of difficult yesterday because the games that I wanted to watch were already out of hand: Oregon State, and Purdue, Notre Dame. So then I kind of meandered around at 3:30 and really didn't lock into a game until I was like, wow, this West Virginia Pitt game was phenomenal. And they were somewhere in the third quarter. And so I watched the entire game and I caught up to it at the end, posted a video on Pitt, West Virginia. And then I was looking at the prime time. And then I always have these conversations with you guys, and you guys ask about games that I didn't see. And I think, you know what? I should just spend my week. I should try this. Like tomorrow's Monday. We should be analyzing college football. We should be given a last look at the previous weekend and what mattered. And then, of course, previewing the next week. But my day is filled up with meetings running this network. So I'm getting away from the content that started the network, built the network, and built this channel. But I'm tied up with meetings all day on Monday and Tuesday. I don't know that people would watch this, but man, the instant analysis videos may not have done well this weekend, but they typically do. Part of me, the football fan part of me, would want to just watch games all week and just provide my thoughts on the games. Just rewatch all the games. That's what I should do. I should just spend the entire week rewatching. I should spend like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday rewatching games from the weekend and giving, it wouldn't be instant analysis. We could give it some other name. And then once Wednesday hits, previews for the other games. I don't know. Something like that. Kevin is saying here, this is an interesting take right here. This is an interesting take because I don't know if this is right or not. I tend to believe that it is. No top team has really beaten another contender. Let's look back at college football history to a certain extent to gain our cues from this. How often does one of the best teams in the country that eventually competed for a national championship lose early? Who was in the playoff last year? Well, 3 of them went undefeated, and Alabama lost to Texas in week 2. So we did have a team last year that lost in week 2, go on and win the SEC and go to the CFP. In 2022, let's see, who do we have? Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, TCU. None of those teams lost early. Because what? TCU lost in the Big 12 championship at Ohio State. We're getting to it, Bellium. I know. Ohio State 2014. We're getting there. So it didn't happen in 2022. 2021, Cincinnati, Georgia, Michigan. Michigan lost to Michigan State like week 8, 9. mid-October, late October, they lost to Michigan State, but they won the Big Ten title. So obviously they made the playoff. This is going to be a different deal. So it's not apples to oranges comparison, because we're going to have, obviously, with 12 teams instead of 4, multiple teams that lost games. But to Kevin's point, no top team has really beat another contender. Well, when you throw out terms like, and I'm not picking on your statement here, Kevin, because I think it's a good statement, and that's the reason I put it up here. But there's a lot of wiggle room in defining top team and another contender. So top team and contender need to be defined. Top team, meaning, I believe, in this context, I think you're talking about a team that has a legitimate chance to win the national championship. How many teams legitimately have a chance to win the national championship? Not just go to the playoff and win a game. Not Penn State, unless you think that Penn State can legitimately win a national championship. To me, there are only 5 teams that can win a national championship. And a couple weeks ago, I would have put Notre Dame on that list. I would have put Notre Dame on that list a couple weeks ago, but I do not think that that team can win a national championship. That team is not, unless they just get considerably better on offense. I don't see them, because the task, again, is not 2 games, it's 3 or 4. Georgia can win a national championship. Alabama, Texas, Ohio State, and I will give a weak 5th spot to Oregon. I don't think Miami can win a national championship. I don't think Clemson or Utah or Kansas State or Notre Dame, maybe Tennessee can win it. Out of that 5 that I just named, maybe Tennessee can win a national championship. Maybe they would be the next one. Maybe USC can win a national championship. Outside of the obvious ones and the ones that so all the ones that I just named, those top 5, we all thought that they could win it at the beginning of the season, and none of them have done anything. Well, other than Georgia struggling with Kentucky, none of them have done anything that we think that have caused us to think, okay, wow, that's a serious concern for that team. Ohio State's rolling against bad teams. Georgia's still undefeated, and they blasted Clemson, even though they struggled last night. Texas won that big game against Michigan. Alabama won its big game against Wisconsin. Oregon has struggled, but then they broke free and broke out with a 5-touchdown win against Oregon State, who's decent, who's okay, who's probably a top 40 or 45 team in the country. Beyond those teams, Tennessee, Penn State, Notre Dame, Missouri, Miami. Guess that would be the next batch of teams. USC. Guess that would be the next batch of teams. How about Iowa State? And then once you get into the Big 12 and the ACC, then there's going to be somebody that's going to emerge as the conference champion. That does mean that they have a legitimate chance to win the national championship. I don't think anybody in the Big 12 can win the national championship. I don't think anyone in the ACC can win the national championship, but I would have much more confidence that Miami, or I'm still going to buy a bit of stock. What's a technical term in the stock marketing industry of, putting a portion, maybe a flyer on Clemson because of what they've accomplished in the past. If we consider the 5 that I mentioned, the elite, then after that, I'd go with Tennessee number 1, Penn State 2, Miami 3, Utah, Clemson, Kansas State in some kind of order. And then it kind of drifts off from there. Will, I know what a share is. That's not the time. Yes, I actually have about 25 stocks right now. I own stock and have for years and years and years. I know what a share is. I was talking about, there was another more complex or technical term than that. But that's an interesting topic. So no top team has really beat another contender. So the closest to that would be Texas beat Michigan. Well, people are doubting Michigan, and for good reason. Georgia beat Clemson. USC beat LSU. Who's the best team with a loss that still has a chance? Because there are going to be teams that have already lost a game that are going to be in the playoff. Iowa's already lost a game. So it's unfortunately unfair to go through history, because the comparison that I was starting to make is obviously a 14 playoff versus a 12-team playoff. Anthony puts Miami 4. So I'm assuming the top 3 are in some order: Georgia, Texas, Ohio State. The closest teams, Kevin says, to defeating quality teams, top contenders: Georgia over Clemson, USC over LSU. I'll take that. Yeah, I'll take that. Back to the scores and whatever else stood out here on week 3. So this game on Friday night, South Alabama scores 87 against Northwestern State. It's the first team in the FBS that has scored. Well, they were on pace. They could have been the first team to score 90 points since Fresno State in 1991. And South Alabama actually missed a field goal. And as you can see right there, they only scored 7 points in the fourth quarter. They were well on their way to scoring 100. They had 80 points after 3 quarters. Kansas State looked impressive against Arizona. Again, that is a non-conference game. UNLV has defeated 2 power conference teams. And we can once again, everyone, say Power 5. There is a Power 5. It is still alive. There is still a Pac-12. There technically was still a Pac-12. We could have said Power 5. Everybody adjusted their verbiage to Power 4, but there's always still been a Power 5. That's why they kept the Pac-12 together. That's why there's still a Pac conference, still a commissioner. It seems a bit ridiculous. Okay, they didn't play a football season. They don't have a sports season at all. And they still have a conference. They still have a commissioner. They still have assets. They still have a foundation. They still have a board. Well, now we know why. And we kind of already did know that they were going to try to do everything they could to salvage the conference. And it appears as though they've accomplished that. And I think that's a good thing, although that's to the detriment of the Mountain West, unfortunately. So these mega conferences like the Big Ten and the SEC and the Big 12 have built are to the detriment of other conferences eventually. Even if they're taking from each other, then what has happened now is the Pac-12 is reestablishing itself, but they can only do so by taking from the Mountain West. And so what's the Mountain West going to do? Well, with those 4 leaving, their 3 best brands, wow, the Mountain West is down to UNLV if they stick around and don't leave for the Pac. They're down to Air Force, Hawaii, and the rest of them. some bad other teams, New Mexico and San Jose State. Texas looked the part. Arch Manning played instead of Quinn Ewers and threw 4 touchdowns and ran for a touchdown and showed some wheels. And Texas San Antonio is obviously not the same team that they've been the last few years because they've been completely blasted. And in the past, they would have lost this game by 3 touchdowns, not by 7 touchdowns. And they lost to Texas State 42-10 the previous week. Alabama, generally impressive. I do think that Wisconsin gave them so many opportunities with mistakes, fumbles. And Tyler Van Dyke was knocked out on the first drive, and he was leading a field goal drive. And Wisconsin missed another field goal. And again, they fumbled the ball at their own 18. So they gave Alabama a lot of points, but Alabama was clearly the better team. It's a case where you get a top 5 team playing a top 40 team, and it showed. All right, look at this conversation we got coming up. We got
yes
on here. What's going on today, David?
Yeah, how you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well.
Yeah, couldn't get a hold of you last night. Was watching the UFC fight, by the way.
Okay.
That was rather entertaining.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to, but I did watch the Georgia-Kentucky game and, had a couple of observations. I don't know if you were thinking the same thing. I heard your kind of conversation with Tim at the end. Was that basically saying if you watched that game and you didn't know which of those two teams were which? Something along those lines, Mark?
The Kentucky-Georgia game? Yes.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is watching Georgia from an offensive standpoint, and I do think Beck is still a very good quarterback, but I kind of wondered this coming into the season. What do you think about the talent around Carson Beck?
Well, I think they have a running back based on what I saw against Clemson in Nick Frazier, who's a better back than the 2 that left. Because those guys didn't even get, I think they're on NFL rosters, but they did not get drafted. So they probably, not to discredit them, probably were the worst Georgia running backs in 15 years to be starters.
Yeah.
And Branson Robinson stuck around, so he's a good player. I think they miss Brock Bowers, and that's to be expected because he's like the best tight end we've seen in how many years? Forever. Right. And they lost Ladd McConkey, although people forget that he missed most of the season last year.
Right. Well, Bowers missed games last year. Well, I had said to Uncle Lou, I thought those 2 guys were kind of hurt at the wrong time for Georgia. I actually think if they could have been fairly healthy for the Alabama game, they might have pulled that game out against Alabama in the SEC title game last year. He maintains that they lost that game on the line of scrimmage. Fair enough. But it would have been interesting to see in a 3-point game had those guys been fairly healthy, because especially Bowers, you're right, it's just been a big part of that offense and that passing game for what, 3? It's like 3 years there basically. And I mean, you're right. I look at their backs, and usually Smart has multiple good backs. As Lewis said before, he's kind of trying to build what Saban had in the early 2000s. Where he has multiple backs he can hit you with. And didn't they give ATN? I always struggle with the name, ATN or ETN.
I go ETN.
Okay.
ETN.
Okay,
yes.
brother of the Clemson running back, right?
Yes.
They gave him, I think, some decent dough, though, didn't they, Mark? If I'm not mistaken.
That's what I understand. Sure.
The details of that NIL deal, but yeah, I mean, and I'm willing to reserve judgment on Georgia. I know they struggled when they went to Kentucky 2 years ago with that Will Levis team. That was an ugly, like 16-6 kind of game.
Yep.
And I mean, are you withholding judgment, or are you putting too much into that game yesterday?
Well, they had teams win national championships, or like last season, you could argue should have earned a playoff spot, went 12-0 in the regular season, that struggled with Missouri, a Missouri team that went 6-7, struggled with an Auburn team that went 6-7, struggled with a Kent State team that went whatever they typically go, 0-100.
Go alma mater, Mark.
Yep. 71-0.
Yeah, not a good day for the alma mater yesterday, Mark.
So I don't think you can say, well, this means absolutely nothing. Of
Right.
course, it means something. They went out and they played a Kentucky team that's probably a top 40 team in the country, and they got outplayed. But they've done this before. Every team that's ever won a national championship since 1995 Nebraska has looked bad, whether they lost or not, or just looked bad, have not performed every week.
Yeah, even 01 Miami had a couple of close games that year.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing about it being is that, I mean, I think I'm willing to withhold judgment, but remember, people jumped on Oregon for struggling early. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
not looking right. So, but
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to go to Tuscaloosa. They're going to go to Austin. I mean, obviously, we're going to know.
Yeah. Oh, they've got 3 mega road tests. So yes, we're going to know. And not that I am holding them to having to win all 3.
Right.
But if they go and let's say they lose 2 out of 3 and they lose by a few touchdowns and just don't look the part, then even if they make the playoff, I'm going to be concerned about their ability to run the table.
Yeah, I agree. I picked them to lose at Tuscaloosa, but win at Austin, and I'm starting to be less and less confident in that.
They go to Ole Miss.
Yeah, and they go to Ole Miss, and I actually had Ole Miss in the playoff too in my preseason projection. I did want to ask you about Texas, Mark. Do we know anything about the Ewers injury? Is that serious?
I don't think it's serious, but we don't know.
Okay. What I find interesting, that's been a quarterback that's been hurt the last 3 seasons now.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I wonder how much that plays into teams' hesitancy for him. Well, I mean, obviously, if he finishes the season strong, it won't hurt his NFL stock, obviously. But
they diagnose, as you well know, everything. They review everything.
Right.
And they should, especially an injury history, because our bodies are in such a way that if you get hurt once, then it becomes the probabilities that you have issues in that area again.
I will say that, the future with Arch Manning is obviously going to be very bright there, especially with Sark coaching him up. I know that on one of the Buckeye podcasts I listened to, they were already previewing the Julian Sain Arch Manning game, in 25, Mark.
Okay.
Well, I mean, just
Are they
because
playing?
With Ohio State and Texas down the road.
Is that the year? Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's going to be interesting. Just because obviously with those being 2 highly rated quarterbacks, I think those were 2 of the highest rated quarterbacks of that class.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
I don't look ahead to games. There's going to be so much that's going to change between now and then.
Yeah. It's just a thought. I actually still think at Ohio State, I think a competition between Nolan and Sain come next spring could be still an interesting one.
Oh yeah. Well, I expected somebody to transfer by now. Not necessarily one of them, but one of the other quarterbacks, and that's not happened. But it's got to happen, I think, before next season. And I want to see them not go get a transfer player. Well, I want to see them do what's best for the program, what's best for the 2025 team. But optimally, I want them not to add additions beyond the recruits.
Well, I mean, their future quarterbacks are going to be pretty well set. I mean, if you look at, whether it be Sain, whether it be Nolan, and then down the road, St. Clair, who's one of the highest, I don't know if you've heard the name Tavian St. Clair, one of the highest rated quarterbacks in the state in like a while. So, that I think their future over the course of the next 3 to 4 years at that position is going to be really interesting. I will say, I wanted to ask you as well. By the way, who is the benefactor at Miami that ponied up all that dough for Cam Ward? By the way, kudos to whoever did that. I was wondering who Miami's sugar daddy was. Mark, is basically what I was curious about.
Well, they've hit a line of them throughout the years. I don't know who the current one is,
but is that? Can we already say money well spent, Mark?
Oh, I agree. I would like to see Cam Ward in the Ohio State offense.
Oh, well, obviously. I mean, that was the number one go-get. I mean, the number one portal quarterback by far, wasn't he, Mark?
Yes.
I mean, so and what I saw of him at Washington State always impressed me too. So I mean, and he may be a game changer for Cristobal. I mean, hey, I picked Miami to make the playoffs, so I was kind of on that train. I'm starting to think I should have just picked them to win the ACC, but although with Miami, do you feel the same way about Miami and Tennessee? Do you put them in the same boat that you really won't know until you see them take that step up in competition, or
Well,
do
the
you
problem with
already know?
Miami is who knows when that's going to be.
Right,
With
right,
Tennessee, we know when it's going to be. They got Oklahoma in 2 weeks.
right.
Oklahoma's better than anybody most likely on Miami's schedule. And Oklahoma's not even close to the best team on Tennessee's schedule.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I still, I'm wondering about this Tennessee team, because we saw that like hot Tennessee offense like 2 years ago, and then they ran into like a real defense, down the road,
Yep.
and then they got slowed up a little bit. So I mean, I just obviously you just have, but they're going to have more than an opportunity with their schedule to see how good they are. But from what you've seen so far, are you buying into the hype?
Yes. I
Okay.
think that Nico is a real player and he's matured beyond what he should at this point. And I think that they played an NC State team that's not extremely good, but it's still a well-coached team and a team with some talent and a team that's going to make noise in the ACC and a team that's probably in the 25 to 30 range of nationally ranked teams when it's all said and done, if not better. And they dismantled them. They threw them around like nothing because they've got a top 5 offensive line. They've got Dylan Sampson as a top level running back. They have 4 receivers who are all good. The tight end's even good. Again, I think Nico, when it's all said and done, he's going to be. So the quarterbacks we talk about as being the best in the country, Iamaleava may surpass some of them. I'm not saying all of them, but we may say at the end of the year, well, he's better than Carson Beck, or he's better than fill in the blank. And then their defense, I don't know that they've got any kind of great defense, but if they can put up 35 and 40 on good teams, then they're not going to need one. And they probably have the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, James Pierce at defensive end.
Well, what's interesting, by the way, do they get Ole Miss down the road?
I'll double check on that. I don't believe so.
I wonder, because I would love to see a battle between Nico and Jackson Dart and Kiffin and Heupel and just like the offensive fireworks in that game.
No Ole Miss on the schedule.
And no LSU?
I was looking at Ole Miss's schedule. So Tennessee, here are their games in the SEC. They go to Oklahoma next week. They've got a bye. They go to Arkansas. They've got Florida and Alabama at home. They've got another bye, and they finish Kentucky, Mississippi State, at Georgia, UTEP, at Vandy. So the big games are Oklahoma, Alabama, and Georgia, and then maybe a trip to Arkansas could be tricky, or a Kentucky game.
Well, that by the way, that Alabama Milroe and that offense versus boy, that could be a shootout just like it was 2 years ago between Hooker and Bryce Young. Remember that with the game that fireworks had in Knoxville 2 years ago. So I could see that being a high scoring game. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, the more the things change, the more things kind of stay the same. By the way, did you watch the entire LSU South Carolina game? Because I did. Yeah.
Loved it.
It was an entertaining game.
Yes.
I know you yearn for the 13-10, 16-13 games.
I don't know where that comes from. My 2 favorite games yesterday were whatever that one finished, 39-36, 36-33, and then the other one was 38-34, West Virginia Pitt. Those were my 2 favorite games yesterday.
I mean, is LSU just going to have to win, 38-35 the rest of the year? I mean, I wonder if this is the way Brian Kelly's got this team built the last couple of years.
Yeah, you wouldn't think he would have a team built like that, but it appears so. Now, maybe that's a step in the right direction, because last year they had to win games like 45-40.
Right, exactly.
So they're getting slightly better.
come down. Well, I think we can say with this quarterback compared to Daniels last year is obviously a notch, little
Yeah.
bit below as far as the quarterback level of play. But yeah, I'm interested to see what Kelly does. I think this is a big year for Kelly. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say the natives are going to get real restless there, but if they don't make the 12-team playoff and they finish with like an 8-4 this year, I don't know if that Southern accent's going to be going over well anymore down there.
If they don't improve significantly or
Yeah.
decidedly, they're not going any better than 8-4.
No, I tend to agree. That's why I'm saying if they get there, if they are 8-4 and don't pull any upsets, I wonder just how much the natives get restless down there.
I picked LSU to go 9-3 and make the playoff.
I had them as like one of the first teams out. Like
Yeah,
I had them at like the 15-16 range.
Yeah, I had a glut of 9-3 teams, and they made the cut.
Yeah, I could see that.
I don't feel as confident about it now as I did then, because I thought in the preseason I thought they'd beat USC, and I think like most people, I didn't even consider South Carolina to be a game. Well, they lost to USC, which once we hit game week, I picked them to lose to USC. And then the South Carolina game, they should have lost. They should be 1-2 right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, did South Carolina blow that game at the end? Is that your contention, Mark?
Yes. They did.
I think so. I think even when they got close to field goal range, to run that draw right before they kicked the field goal was a stupid idea. They should have at least had the quarterback run or throw another pass. They had a timeout.
This is what drives me crazy about football strategy at the end of games in those kind of situations.
Right.
It reminds me of, and I no longer watch basketball, but it used to drive me crazy when a team was down 2 in basketball and the point guard would bring the ball. Let's say the point guard was decent shooter, not just distributor, but he would bring the ball down court in the last, number one, let's say there's 20 seconds left on the clock. He'd always start too late. He would start, he'd stand there and dribble, and it'd be like, go, go, go now. And he'd wait too long, number one. Number two, it was usually start driving to the basket and then pull up at some point with a shot that's probably going to be made 20% of the time. You're a 45% shooter, maybe, and the majority of those are layups. And you're shooting a pull-up, go to the rim and force the official to make a call. Number one, if you can make the shot, then you're making a high percentage shot. If you don't, you're probably going to get legitimately fouled, or it's going to look like a foul, and you go to the line.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And just my analogy to football is these coaches get on the fringe of field goal range, just on the fringe of field goal range, and they just trust their kicker who's probably hitting 75% of his kicks and probably 50-50 from plus 45. And then they trust that kicker more than they're going to trust their offense to execute like a 6-yard out with 9 seconds left in the game. Like, give that kicker, you're going to increase his percentage chance of making that field goal by probably 10 or 15% by getting him 5 or 6 yards closer.
Yeah, I just, by the way, a couple things. It kind of gave me shades. I hate to bring this up, of 2 years ago when they ran the Hayden draw.
Lord. Yes.
Right. I don't want to go there.
I watched that game just the other day. I didn't watch the whole game, but I watched a lot of it.
Did you really?
Yeah, I put it back in there, and I don't know what came up that I thought, I'm going to watch this game. And I watched a lot of, like, I zipped through the whole thing, but I watched all the keys. I took a good hour and watched it because I just wanted to remind myself of, okay, what went wrong and how did this go? And but I can't even think of the Ruggles. He made a 48-yarder.
Yeah, he did.
In the same quarter.
Right.
And it was on the same hash. It was on the left hash. It was the same kick.
Yeah, I mean, I still think they needed about 10 yards on that drive. I think if
Oh,
they'd have got
yeah. I'm not
10,
I'm
yeah,
agreeing with you. Yes,
yeah,
they
at
did.
least 10.
Yeah, you don't want to put him out there or any kicker out there on the fringe of their distance with the game with a national championship on the line. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I just I know not to diverge into basketball, but you know the other thing that gets me with basketball real quick is, and I don't know if all teams do this, is the down three and not fouling the guy before he gets off the 3-point shot.
Yeah.
That I
Sure.
guess teams will do that from time to time, but I don't think they do that enough. They let the
No.
guy get off the 3-point shot instead of fouling, because what are the chances of them hitting the first free throw, banking it off the rim, and then you getting the offensive rebound and putting it back in?
Okay. I thought you were talking about fouling before they get to the shot to
No,
make them inbound the ball again.
no, I'm talking about fouling, even
Sure.
if you're over the limit, is what I'm saying.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So, by the way, back, and I only watched highlights of it, but can I ask the question? What's Mark Rogers on the Steve Day show going to be like this week?
Well, yeah, this is just I don't want to call them a bad football team because when I say bad, I mean 4-8's bad, but Michigan bad. They're not. So here's my evaluation. Basically, the offensive line is nothing close to what it's been.
Yeah.
Obviously, the quarterback situation, and this has become a topic for me that I've kind of pounded into the pavement over the last couple of weeks, as it's become evident that now that we've got this transfer portal and the quarterback being the position that it is,
Yeah.
one of the evaluations of these coaches should be, do they get the transfer portal right?
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, do they get it right at the quarterback position? So, Hugh Freeze, why did you not go to the portal? Mike Norvell, bad decision in the portal. Somebody else is not coming to mind Michigan, but there's somebody else. But Michigan should have been in the transfer portal. Yeah. And then I don't know if you heard me on Dace's show a couple of weeks ago after the Texas game, and I'm like, Alex Orji, every time the guy's in a game against a good opponent, you know that he's running the ball. Like you couldn't have this guy competed for the starting quarterback job right down to the wire. Like this guy, you can't have like 3 pass plays that you've worked on over and over and over and over out of that same formation to at least make him, even if you completely don't trust his ability to read a defense, go through progressions, that he can't throw a slant or something out of that formation.
That's right. Well, the thing about it is a lot of their fan base was telling me that Orji could complete a pass before the start of the season, that he was at least a capable of enough passer.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
we had somebody kicking around here who predicted he was going to throw for a 65% completion percentage.
Yeah, well, I heard some of the delusional fan base, which makes up a majority of their fan base. Sorry, don't mean to come at your largest fan base there, Mark. But tell me, they were making Cam Newton-like comparisons there before the offseason.
Oh, man.
Like they're not prone to hyperbole over there, I guess. But
yes.
In any case, but the one thing I did think, you're right. I thought that they would still have decent offensive line play. And again, I didn't watch the entire game. I just saw the cut-ups, the highlights, and wow. And I know it was 28-3, but if you can't consistently push around Arkansas State's front seven.
Yeah. Or Fresno State.
Or Fresno State's
They couldn't do it to them either. Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck.
And the other thing, if you have a team that, so let's make no mistake about it, that they were never threatened in that game to a certain point. They were never going to lose the game or anything like that. And 28-18 is somewhat deceiving in regards to it being 28-3. However, the Michigan teams of the last 3 years, what did they do against all those horrible Hawaii, Colorado State kind of teams? What did they do against the likes of Rutgers, Minnesota, those kind of games, even within the Big Ten? They basically only let Ohio State and Maryland play close to them. They annihilated Nebraska last year. They annihilated anybody who was marginal in the Big Ten, not just the non-conference fodder.
Right.
And now they've played 2 of those kind of games. They couldn't do that to either one of them. And wouldn't you think after being embarrassed by Texas that they would be a bit angry, and at 21-3 or whatever you cited the score to be, 28-3, that they would have just continued to put down the throttle and just kick them around?
Well, yeah, like even when they had McNamara at quarterback, I mean, they still had dominant offensive line play in a run game that they could just, run people over with. But I don't even see that anymore. I mean, I'm convinced that Mullings is their best running back, and I know
Yeah.
we discussed that before the Texas game. But and then again, I mean, I never thought their passing game was great. But you're looking at it now. Is Loveland hurt? I thought maybe he was injured or something for them. I don't know if that's true, but
I'll have to look that up. I don't know.
if that is, then they're really in trouble, because if you look
Oh.
at it last year, they really only had, in their passing game, I know it went off against horrible teams, but in big games, I mean, it was really only 2 reliable targets that they had last year. Was it basically Roman Wilson and Loveland, right?
Yeah.
Were their 2 primary targets. I think they did have a second tight end last year that was decent. That transfer from Indiana wasn't bad.
Yes, I can't think of his name off the Barner.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was decent. But yeah, I mean, Barner's gone, and then and Wilson's gone, so they got nobody that, I mean, you're basically left with Loveland, and then that's it.
Yeah, we never thought that Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson were anything special, but at least they were capable
Right.
wide receivers.
I tell you what, Mark, I'm not going to say the house, but I mean, the USC line's what, 7.5? I thought I
Is
saw it
it
was
really?
I
Wow.
thought I saw it was 7.5. If it's even 9.5, 10.5, I might be thinking about it.
Let's see if this is out. Man, can you imagine how much has that point spread changed since the season started? It is okay. So if this is correct, which this is my go-to, it opened at 10.5 and it is now 8.5.
Oh,
It's all
8.5.
over the place. So those are the various books in Vegas, and that's the opening line there to the far left, and then there's the various lines.
Well, I'd still bet the house at 8.5. Well, I think I still think Lincoln Riley's, I think Miller Moss could do some business still on their defense.
Yeah. I don't want to be fooled too much by one USC game to have confidence that that team's going to go into Ann Arbor and win by 10 points.
Yeah, I mean, I know Texas is a step above, maybe a couple of steps above USC.
Probably.
Right now, but still, with the disarray that this offense is in, and I still, and I heard Dace's podcast. I mean, he was not necessarily happy with their defense.
Oh, I'm not. Well, not that I care, but you know what I mean.
Sure.
I'm on their behalf, because this is what I expected out of their defense against Texas. If you would have given me 31-12 at the end of the game, I would have said, well, okay, 31-12, it was probably a 1-score game going into the fourth quarter, and Texas just wore them down because that defense on Michigan's side had to deal with 3 and out by the offense, and they got worn down. But they were getting run around the field on the first drive.
Right.
And it never stopped.
Who's the big time receiver at SC2? As a Branch?
Yes, Malachi Branch.
Yeah.
Zachariah Branch. I'm sorry.
That's going to be interesting to see, maybe NFL matchup there. Him and Will Johnson, maybe.
Yeah, he's a little quick guy. USC's got an excellent wide receiver core. Really good tight end who can split out wide. Deuce Robinson, the Kyle Ford, as well as he's more of a traditional tight end. They've got weapons. Yes, they do.
Right. I mean, I don't know, 8.5, Mark. I think that's totally doable. I can see them winning the game by at least 10 points. At least 10 points. Because I think even if they score 21 points, it's 21-10.
Yeah. Yeah, I was impressed. The one thing I'll take away again from the USC game against LSU is that, after week 1, week 2 games, we have that constant back and forth. Okay, well, they looked really good on offense, but does that mean that their defense isn't as good as we thought? And we have to play that. But there was the one thing that I could take from that is that I know LSU's offense, and I say this even before yesterday's game. I know LSU's offense is good. And if
Yeah.
USC's defense was able to be that competitive against LSU's offense, then I know that they've improved significantly.
One last point about the team up north, if I may, Mark, to kind of I find interesting as Mr. Dace continues to bask in the glow of the Natty, of course, the stolen Nat. Well, I'm not going to go there, but in any case, and as I hear some of their delusional fan base talk about, even they're okay 8-4. If we go 8-4, then I heard somebody in the chat say if we go 8-4 the next few years after winning the Natty, it's okay with me. By the way, I know a certain program that even when they win the Natty, that if they go 8-4 for the next couple years, I mean, come on, Mark. Let's
I have
be
told
real
Dace
here.
that same thing. I said that at the beginning of the last show. The first thing he said was, of course, he records his other segment, which I don't get to see. And then he brings me in and then he says, oh, we suck basically, but oh, well, we won the Natty. And I said something to the effect of, yeah, there are programs out there that don't take that attitude.
Yeah.
If Ohio State wins the national championship this year, yes, people are going to be more lenient or forgiving for a down 2025. But what are Ohio State fans expecting? What are the goals? To win another national championship, to keep winning national championships. That's the goal every year. Not this will keep us for 20 years. We're good.
Right.
No, it's a completely different attitude.
Right. Basically, win the Natty, go back to mediocrity, and we're okay with that. I mean, that's the long and short of it. The M stands for mediocrity.
Yeah, that's the difference between wanting to just kind of hold on to your memories and feel good about one season and it's like looking back on your childhood, like your adult life was a complete disaster. But when I was 12, that summer was phenomenal versus wanting your entire life to be a success. Right. And enjoy your life year to year and say, you know what? Yeah, we can do better. I can do better. Let's continue to make good decisions and have a good life. No, not, I'm 45 and it's been a disaster since, but man, that 7th grade year was just great.
Well, you have to excuse them, Mark. After 20 some years of a lack of success and failures and bad coaching and mediocrity and just poor teams, this is their big hurrah. But you know what? With all this success, you know what? The NCAA may have something to say about their success that they had, but I digress.
I have to laugh, David, at the way Hellwagon refers to it because he's very matter of fact. He doesn't like get up on the soapbox. Sometimes he gets on the soapbox, but he kind of just like this past week, I think he just uses terms like, well, that's the market correction. And, he uses that term. He uses the kind of like, okay, they're back where they belong.
That's right. That makes sense. Yeah, right. Remember, the M stands for mediocrity. That's what they'll be back to. And, they may be heading back to the Rich Rod days. Now, I'm not going to shed a tear over that, but we'll see. Be interesting to see if Mr. Moore, rights the ship here. He may. That could be a rough situation. Well,
yeah,
time will tell.
I made the statement last night. We were talking about it because, of course, a number of people were asking me about Sharon Moore. Somebody asked me what is the worst hire, Sharon Moore, Jeff Lebby, or he threw out another first-year head coach who's struggling. And I said, okay, well, let's understand that these two guys did not inherit a program. They've got, give them 3 years. So that's not a comparison to be made. I would not have hired Sharon Moore to be the head coach at Michigan. And I'm not saying that now. I said that at the time, but I didn't say I am predicting a disaster and he's a horrible hire. I was just saying I would not make that hire because there are plenty of capable coaches out there. And then people always make the mistake of looking around and thinking, well, who's available? Well, people don't have to be available.
Yeah.
Look at all the big coaching hires from the last 5 years. Was Mario Cristobal available? No, he was dutifully employed at Oregon. Was Lincoln Riley available? Was Brian Kelly available?
Right.
No. You go get a coach.
Right. I mean, you do a Godfather offer. You put all your chips in there. You make them an offer they can't refuse. But well, I'm a little concerned about you, Mark. I know it's your largest fan base, but I really wonder in a couple years if we're going to say that's going to be the case. I mean, I think the Walmarts will be gone, and it'll be a good thing. We'll get them out of our chat, and we won't have to worry about them any longer. But such will be the case. I hope you're not counting on them to keep the lights on, Mark. That's all I'm saying there.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll see us come on here at some point and there won't be any lights on. And then maybe the next week there's not going to be this or that, or there won't be any helmets because I've at least, auctioned them off for $3 a piece or something. That's all I could get from them down at the consignment store somewhere.
If Mark Rogers is running a garage sale,
you're going to see me shirtless, and then that's going to be the end of it. Then you're just going to see black.
All right, Mark. Well, hey, it is a pleasure, my friend, to talk college football with you. I've got to go and watch the Cleveland Browns.
The Brownies.
Yeah, please don't. Oh, geez, what a way to ruin a weekend, huh?
I've got a decision to make because I've been invited to go over and watch the Browns game at a friend's house or work on this wonderful channel. I can do one or the other.
Hey, you got to keep going what you got to keep going, though, huh, Mark? You might be saving yourself by not watching the Browns game, just to be real with you, Mark.
Yeah.
But I'm a glutton for a punishment. So
yeah, well, that's your team. You got to stay with your team.
Got to.
You sat through 2011 as well. So
yeah. I sat through 16 and 17 when they won one game in 2 years.
Well, I'm talking 2011 Ohio State.
Oh, well, you had to bring that up, Mark. Can I please?
I'm just making a comparison. Just
right. Well, all right. All right. Well, always a pleasure, Mark. You have yourself a good Sunday. Enjoy. And, I will talk to you next time.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it.
Take care, Mark. Bye-bye.
We do appreciate everyone here at the Voice of College Football. So we got DK Fishing and Outdoors, became a YouTube member. Thank you for that, sir. Hopefully that is a good experience for you. We appreciate it. And we will get you a Discord link, and we will also get you the other benefits or allow you what those are going forward. And so that will be posted in the community section. So thank you for that, DK Fishing and Outdoors. Daniel, thank you so much for the contribution. Dave Doran is a hack. AP stop ranking NC State. Well, actually, I posted 2 videos a long time ago, like 5, maybe not that long ago, but years ago, on Dave Doran and his lackluster, mediocre record at NC State and why he was not being fired. I had no idea. But that was pre-2020. Because Dave Doran's first 7 or 8 seasons at NC State produced a 37% winning percentage in the ACC. And I was throwing up my hands saying, why does this guy have a job? What is going on? Why does Dave Doran have a job? So again, for anybody tuning in right now, I'm going pre-2020 range of Dave Doran's stay at NC State. He's had that job forever. He had about a 7 or 8 year run, and he was winning 37% of his games at NC State. I understand the bar's not that high there, but people had this perception that, NC State's a pretty good program. They go 8-4, 7-5. Well, they do go 8-4, 7-5, but that was produced by going 4-0 against the William and Marys and East Carolinas and Richmonds during the non-conference play, and then going 3-5 in the ACC. That's basically what was producing 7-5. And then maybe you'd win a bowl game and go 8-5. So that was NC State for 7 or 8 years. Now, and you can look up the videos. Why does Dave Doran have a job? But I would have to say that he's picked it up considerably in the last 3 or 4 years. Going into this year, they were 23-11 in the ACC, and I know the ACC is not a good conference, but 23-11 is much better. That what is that? A 70% winning percentage, much better than 37%. And so he's had a good run of 3 or 4 years. Now this season looks bad. They almost lost to Louisiana Tech, who's 3-9, 3-9, 3-9 the last 3 years. And of course, they had that debacle against Tennessee. That's a bad look. Not that they lost to Tennessee, because Tennessee could be really good, but oh man, they look like a junior high team in that game. So yeah, Dave Doran, he's going to keep his job because he's just won too many games there. And NC State, when have they ever established a bar as being that high? They're a 7-5 program forever that has not won a conference title since 1979. So NC State fan Daniel, which I'm assuming that's who you are, you just don't have that level of standard there to rate him against. The standard in NC State has been go 7-5, 8-4, and go to a bowl game. And we're good with that. That's what it is. And that's what he's been able to achieve. So he gets to keep his job. And then maybe somebody will step in at some point. We've seen this from time to time. Paul Chryst at Wisconsin. His last season there was 9-4, and he got fired. And Wisconsin came out and said, we want to win championships. This is not good enough. So we want to do better. We're a good football program. And that was Wisconsin. Wisconsin's here. They're better than NC State. Now, over the last 3 or 4 years, there's been little separation between NC State and Wisconsin, but I think we can all agree that there's no comparison between Wisconsin in the last 30 years and NC State. Wisconsin's like a top 12 to 15 program, and NC State's like a top 35 program. But Wisconsin made that move to say, that's not good enough. Bye. We want to do better. Now, whether they achieve that or not remains to be seen. They don't look like they are at this point, but at least they said, we've got a standard here. I don't know if NC State's going to make that move. I think they're pretty content with going 8-4. And in this ACC this year, they have yet to step on the field in the ACC. They may turn into a contender. Don't be surprised if NC State's not in ACC title game contention in mid-November, because the ACC is not very good, and NC State does not play Miami. All right, we do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. We want to remind everyone that we've got a college football show that we call the College Football Show, and it comes your way every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We've got great guests, we've got your calls, and we got my rants, and that's what that's all about. They're Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and of course, we've got our, I got to admit, we report our, if I can talk, we report our failures here at the Voice of College Football. So Steve's under the radar pick. That's Steve Merrill of Wager Talk. He's phenomenal. He missed it yesterday. Picked Duke to cover against UConn. They did not, but this only proves that he's human. 23-6 against the spread. 23-6 against the spread. I said 23-6 against the spread. I'm not 23-6 against the spread ever. Nobody is. And I have had 2 of the worst weeks of my predictions career these last 2 weeks. So that only says that the odds say I'm going to do better than I typically do going forward. That's what that tells me, because I got a 40-year track record that says so. And I guess we can find out more about that right now. College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under the radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.